want to call to order the meeting, excuse me, already choking up, of February 23rd to order. Planning and Zoning Commission, City of Leesburg. We'll all rise for the pledge and the prayer. Do the prayer first. Dear Lord, we ask you to be with us today as we tackle the City of Leesburg's business. We hope that the decisions we make today will be pleasing in your sight. Pray this in thy most holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, commissioners and people, thank you all for coming. We appreciate people that want to get involved in the City of Leesburg's activities. Before you, Commission, you have the minutes from the January 19th meeting. Are there any additions, corrections, or amendments to those minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes of January 19th, 2023.
Motion for approval. Do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. And
Aye.
raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, Dan, if you would, if you'll explain to these folks how we do business.
Welcome, everyone, to the February 23rd, 2023 City of Leesburg Planning Commission meeting. My name is Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning Director with the City of Leesburg. Staff present today includes Ms. Sabrina Mitchell, Administrative Assistant 2 to my left. Senior planners Candy Harper, Christine Rock, and Diane Yeckel, and planners Max Van Allen and Melissa Metters. Today's meeting is available on the table by the door, today's meeting agenda, I should say. If you'd like to speak on a case, we would ask that you would sign the speaker's registry that's also on that same table by the door and turn it in to Sabrina. You may do this anytime prior to the case being opened on the agenda. Under the rules of participation, the meeting is conducted under the following process. The chairman will announce the case. The staff will read a list of exhibits, which include maps, photos, and text, into the record and present this information on the screens. Staff will then read a recommendation into the record. The applicant will have an opportunity to speak about the request. The chairman will allow time for public comment, and the applicant will have an opportunity for rebuttal. The chairman will close the case to the public, and the commission will discuss the case. A vote will be taken, and the commission will move to the next case. The Planning Commission is a citizen board appointed by the City Commission, which is charged with two major responsibilities. One is to make final decisions on cases such as variances and conditional uses, and two is to make recommendations for issues to be heard by the City Commission. Today, the Planning Commission will be making only recommendations on all the cases being heard. On those cases that will be heard by the City Commission, please note that there are tentative dates for those City Commission hearings, which are listed in bold on the agenda. Those dates are subject to be changed to earlier or later dates, so please do call our office or the city clerk's office in regard to learning the final hearing dates, just to be sure. And finally, on behalf of the planning staff and the Leesburg Planning Commission, we would like to thank you for your participation in today's public hearing. Mr. Chairman, we're ready to be sworn in and so forth.
Thank you, Dan. Before you, you've got public hearing case SSCP 22585, Sundance Commercial and Industrial Small Scale Comp Plan Amendment. They've asked to postpone this until March 23rd meeting. I'll need a motion to approve the postponement.
I make the motion.
I have a motion to postpone. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Moving right along.
You pardon?
I can't hear you. Yeah. We do have a few people that want to speak tonight. Anybody that wants to talk regarding this, I'm going to ask that we swear you in, so you please rise. And Sabrina, if you'll swear them in.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I didn't hear any I do's out there.
Yeah, if anyone in the audience plans to present any testimony or information on any of the items that are listed on the agenda for this afternoon, if you would also please stand right now so you could be sworn in for your testimony. Thank you all.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. We don't have to do the planned unit postponement as well, can't that one?
I think we just addressed the first item, Mr. Chairman, so if we just address the second item for postponement, I believe that was also for postponement as well. Yeah, I think just call it out and similarly.
So on case PUD 22586, I need a motion to approve the postponement.
I motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Public hearing case SSCP 223, Hudson Furniture, Leesburg, small scale comp plan amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For SSCP 22-3 and PUD 22-4, Hudson's Furniture, small-scale comp plan and planned unit development zoning. These are requests for a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment and PUD, which is planned unit development zoning, located on the north side of State Road 44, which out in that direction changes from West Main to State Road 44. And east of Executive Boulevard. The property is under contract with Hudson's Furniture. The request is to, one, change the future land use designation from industrial and conservation to general commercial and conservation. And then the second case is to requesting a change in the zoning from M1, which is industrial, to planned unit development. Under the background, this is a proposal for a 22-acre parcel for a large national retail operation that sells furniture and home furnishings. We'll get into this a bit later, but they're requesting 50,000 square feet of commercial uses for the furniture store. And then on the north, that would be along the roadway. And then on the northwest side of the property, that would be RV and boat parking, which you can't really see from the roadway. There are, within this planned unit development, design and architectural standards for the building, dark sky lighting requirements, which means shielding and directing the light inward, landscape buffers surrounding the properties. There's significant amounts of wetlands, which you'll see in the upcoming exhibits on this property. 35% of the space has to be open space. There are irrigation controls to use water-wise, Florida-friendly landscaping. And at this point, I believe Max Van Allen, planner with the office, will be presenting the exhibits that will include the aerial zoning future and surrounding land use maps, but also wetlands and flood zone maps, CRA maps. So go ahead, Max.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. The aerial shows the parcel location north of 44 and West Main Street, as previously noted, and east of Executive Boulevard to the south. The City of Leesburg zoning is currently M1 industrial, surrounded by M1, SPUD, PUD, CIP, and institutional zonings. The nearby Lake County zonings are agriculture, light industrial, and heavy industrial. The proposed zoning for this parcel is PUD. The existing future land use designation is industrial and conservation, which is called out in the teal color. The Lake County surrounding future land use includes industrial and urban medium density to the north. The proposed land use designations are general commercial and conservation. Please note that the conservation is going to stay in the same area. The surrounding uses include agriculture, industrial, and lodge. And you can see the wetlands on the property correspond with the conservation portion of future land use. The flood zone area is to the northeast as well, surrounding that wetland. The commission district is 2 for this property. And signs were posted on February 10th. You can see on the top, looking north into the property from across West Main and 44. On the bottom, looking east on West Main and 44. Looking west on West Main up top. And looking south across West Main and 44. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. With that, we move into the department review summary. The project was sent out to all city and county departments that are impacted, plus the Lake County Government School Board. All comments received were standard comments from the departments, nothing unusual or need to be noted. Under the City of Leesburg public notice requirements, project was sent out to the surrounding property owners along with being advertised in the newspaper and a sign posted. No comments. At this point, we have received no comments. I'd like to go ahead and read the staff recommendation into the record. For the small-scale comprehensive plan amendment to general commercial and conservation, under SSCP 22-3 for Hudson's Furniture Showroom, Inc., the Planning and Zoning Division is recommending approval of the request for the following reasons. Number one, the project meets the requirements of Chapter 163.3187 Florida statutes for small-scale comprehensive plan amendments. Number two, the proposed request as conditioned in City of Leesburg case number PUD 22-4 is compatible with the adjacent future land use designations of City of Leesburg Industrial and with Lake County Industrial Urban Low Density. The proposed request as conditioned in City of Leesburg case number PUD 22-4 is compatible with the current surrounding zoning districts of City of Leesburg PUD, M1, which is industrial, SPUD, which is small plan unit development, CIP, which is commercial industrial planned, and I, which is institutional. It's also compatible with Lake County HM, which is heavy industrial, LM, light industrial, and A, agriculture. Four, the proposed future land use designation for the site is consistent with the city's growth management plan, future land use element goal 1, objective 1.6. The action requested is vote to approve the small-scale comprehensive plan amendment from City of Leesburg Industrial and Conservation to General Commercial and Conservation and forward this recommendation to the City Commission for their consideration. Under the PUD 22-4 for Hudson's Furniture Showroom, the PUD case, Planning and Zoning Division is recommending approval of this request for the following reasons. One, the proposed request is compatible with the current surrounding zoning districts of City of Leesburg PUD, Plan Unit Development, M1 Industrial, C3 Highway Commercial, SPUD, which is Small Plan Unit Development, CIP, which is Commercial Industrial Plan, I Institutional, and with Lake County A Agriculture, HM Heavy Industrial, and LM Light Industrial. Two, the proposed request will allow commercial and storage uses for the property that is consistent with the ongoing development patterns along West Main Street near Executive Boulevard. And three, the proposed request does not appear to create a detriment to surrounding properties based on the location and proximity to compatible development. Action requested is one, vote to approve the staff's recommendation to rezone the subject property from City of Leesburg M1 Industrial to PUD Plan Unit Development and forward to the City Commission for consideration. May I ask, Diane, do we have the photos, not the photos, in the packet, the Hudson's Furniture Exhibit E under the PUD case, which would be right there? Thank you. I believe Mr. Mitch Collins is here. I hope Mr. Mitch Collins is here. There he is. Thank you. Mr. Mitch Collins is the engineer and representative on this project. He's here to answer any questions you may have. As you can see from this facade design, this is a typical Hudson's Furniture store, approximately 50,000 square feet. It's very large, has nice design to it from the planning standpoint. I believe it was one entrance and exit, and the RV storage that they're requesting on the site would go around behind, and we can go to the site plan if you would please, Diane, right there. So you see, if you can see where it says State Road 44, there's an entryway there, and parking is along the side and the back, and then the RV parking is up on the top left of the exhibit. So that's all staff has at this point. Mr. Chairman, we are recommending approval.
Any of the commission have any questions of staff? Any questions of Mr. Collins?
I have a question, Mr. Collins. Is the RV parking, is that public or is that just private use for the store?
It's not associated with the store necessarily. It's probably going to be separately operated but it's open to the public.
Is it storage or is it just parking for storage?
Currently, the plan is to have the furniture store set up, and it's sort of unknown what the developer wants to do in the back. What he's thinking right now would be a good use would be outdoor RV storage or outdoor boat storage. And that's kind of laid out on the site plan currently. That is what's probably, I would say, is likely, but it would be open to the public, certainly. And it's not necessarily associated with the furniture store.
Okay, thank you.
So what you're saying, nobody's going to be camping in there, things of that nature. They're just for storage.
Correct.
That was my understanding. Any other questions of Mr. Miller? Any other questions of staff? Hearing none. On 223, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve SCP-22-3.
I have a motion for approval. Do I hear a second? I have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your right hand.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
you brought up the concern, if I may,
Yes, sir.
in regard to overnight stays.
Yes, sir.
We could amend that to allow no overnight stays in the RVs and add that in to the prohibited uses.
Etch it in stone. Yeah.
If the motion can be made, just to protect everyone.
We could do that on 224, could we not?
Yes, sir.
That's what you just read. That's what he just read was for. It was
For the
3.
comp
You
plan.
did 3?
You did 3. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know why I thought it was
4
4.
coming up now.
Right. Yes, sir. So that condition could be included on the motion for number 4.
So if you're going to move on 224, please include that as no overnight camping. It's just for storage, period.
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion to approve PUD 22-4 with the amendment of no overnight stand, strictly storage.
Have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your right hand.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller. Okay. Okay. Now we're on new business. Sleepy Hollow Storage Planned Unit Development. PUD 2327.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For SPUD 2327 Sleepy Hollow Storage, this is a request on property located south of U.S. Highway 441 and west of Sleepy Hollow Road. The request is to amend the existing zoning on the property from PUD Plan Unit Development to PUD Plan Unit Development with amended conditions. This is a proposal for a mixed-use development on 15.8 plus or minus acres consisting of 10,000 square feet of light commercial uses. The primary use anticipated for the property is self-storage units, also with RV boat storage. Additional uses potentially include a single-family residence and light commercial uses such as daycare or office or medical uses. The standard list of prohibited uses which we place in these PUDs is extensive and includes tattoo parlors, check cashing stores, thrift, and pawn. It's basically anything too intense for the area that would not specifically support the residential development in the area. I'd like you to please note the vast majority of this property is covered in wetlands and flood zones, which in this case basically make the useful portion on the far northeast corner. Thank you, Christine. And hence there's a limited number of uses that can be applied. There are architectural standards, design standards such as the dark sky lighting and fencing requirements, landscaping, buffers around the property, the wetlands are preserved, irrigation controls, again, so that we're not using St. Augustine grass as is standard. We're using Bahia, Zoysia, or Bermuda. This time, Christine Rock, Senior Planner, will present the exhibits.
Thank you. So here we have our aerial map showing the general location of the subject property. It is located west of Sleepy Hollow Road and east of US Highway 441. So it is currently zoned Leesburg PUD, and the property to the north is also Leesburg PUD, and to the west is C3, and the south is R2. The adjacent Lake County zonings to the southeast, to the south and east are Lake County R1, and to the west is CP. The proposed zoning is planned unit development, PUD. The future land use of the property is low-density residential, and the property to the north is also future land use category of low-density residential, and to the northwest is general commercial, and to the south we have estate residential future land use. So the adjacent Lake County future land use categories to the south and east are urban low density, and to the west is urban medium density. For our surrounding land uses, we have residential to the north, south, and east, and we have commercial to the west of the subject property. The property is largely wetlands, so the portion in the northeast corner is not located within wetlands. The flood zone also closely follows where the wetlands are. It is in Commission District Number 5, and it is also within the 27441 Community Redevelopment Area. This property was posted, so the first picture you're looking at is looking into the property from Sleepy Hollow Road, and then the second picture is looking north along Sleepy Hollow Road. Their top photo is looking south on Sleepy Hollow Road, and the bottom photo is looking directly across Sleepy Hollow Road. That is all I have.
Thank you, Christine. Moving on to the departmental review summary, the project was sent out to all city departments plus Lake County government and school board. Please note that there were no substantive comments received from the city departments. Lake County noted their standard comments, which include a turn lane on this location on Sleepy Hollow Road with a sidewalk along the property. The property, per the City of Leesburg notice requirements, was posted, advertised, and sent out to the surrounding property owners in the form of a letter. The staff did receive one comment back, and their concerns were regarding traffic and drainage issues. So I'd like to go ahead and read the recommendation into the record. For case number PUD 23-27, Sleepy Hollow Road Storage, Planning and Zoning Division is recommending approval of this project based on the following information and reasons. Number one, the previous request to zone the property to PUD was approved in 2009 under Ordinance 09-53. The proposed request is to add light commercial and self-storage uses to include RV parking. 3, the proposed request is compatible with the current surrounding zoning districts of PUD, Plan Unit Development, R2 Medium Density Residential, R3 High Density Residential, and with Lake County zoning districts R1 Rural Residential, C3 Highway Commercial, and CP Planned Commercial. Proposed use, number 4, the proposed use will support existing surrounding residential uses. It is not anticipated to create a negative impact on neighboring properties. The action requested is to vote to approve staff's recommendation to rezone the subject property from PUD Plan Unit Development to PUD Plan Unit Development and forward to the City Commission for their consideration. Under the permitted uses, we have single-family residential, which there's about enough land to put one house on there. Light commercial, that would be daycare or a medical office. And again, this is a small amount of usable land because of the wetlands that's bringing this in. Potential for a communication tower, it states cultural facility, government facility, religious institution, self-storage units with RV parking. Everything else everything else is prohibited. So the tattoo parlors, check cashing, adult uses, thrift stores, consignment shop, pawn shop, none of that generates a lot of traffic. Everything that is permitted under this PUD is very limited in terms of traffic and in terms of construction requirements, and that comes, again, from the significant amount of wetlands on the property. Everything else is pretty standard. There are buffer requirements, 6-foot privacy fence, or 6-foot privacy fence on the northern boundary, and 6-foot chain link or solid along the eastern boundary for security purposes. And I think the wetlands probably takes care of everything else.
Yeah, I think so.
And then again, Lake County did require that they would install a turn lane. Everything else is standard PUD language, nothing out of the ordinary. And with that, I believe Mr. Alan Taylor and Mr. Mario DeMarco are here to answer any questions you have. Staff is recommending approval.
Okay. Does the applicant have anything they want to say? Do the commission have any questions of staff?
I have just a little concern.
Yes, sir.
With the, I heard what you said, Mr. Miller, on none that regarding traffic and stuff, but having RVs, you know, if they just bringing the storage and stuff and riding around through them small roads, that concerns me.
Okay. That's understood. One of the reasons we said self-storage in RVs was because of the intense amount of growth in the Sunnyside area, both in the city of Leesburg and Lake County. So we're trying to limit, because the property is limited, severely limited by the wetlands. So we're trying to limit, thank you, Diane, we're trying to limit the uses and the traffic as much as possible. It's a short ride from 441 into here. If you have an RV and you live in either Sunnyside or outside and you want to store your RV here, you take it, and however often you use your RV, you know, and that depends on the person or your boat. The amount of permitted building, I believe, was limited to 10,000 square feet. So it's not large. But that, again, everything on this particular property, because it is so seriously limited by the wetlands, that's why those restrictions are there, to help prevent the traffic and to keep, for example, if there was a daycare to go in there, that's going to obviously support. You can drop your kids off and you're not making an additional trip because you're coming out of the neighborhood. Those types of uses that just don't generate a ton of traffic.
Dan, how much actually usable land is involved with this parcel?
I believe it is a little over, right at 2 acres, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's not much. It's less than, I want to say around 1.7. I apologize. I meant to look at that number specifically.
And you say the square footage of the building is what?
I believe it was
10,000. Is how much of the storage is to be in the building? How much is outside the building?
A 10,000 square foot building would basically be 5 single family houses lined up together.
Yeah.
And then whatever space that takes, you have the 30-foot front setback minimum, and the building itself, and then anything that is not wetlands, because there are wetlands buffers also written into the PUD, they could use that for storage.
Okay.
So of the RV, so that it
Fencing requirements?
Yes, sir. The fencing requirements are a solid fence on the northern boundary and either a solid or chain link on the eastern boundary along Sleepy Hollow Road.
Okay. We have a couple of people in the audience that would like to speak to this. James Heyer. James, if you come and identify yourself on the microphone and tell us where you live.
I'm James Heyer. I live in Sleepy Hollow, and I'm here to speak for...
Is that 183 Patricia Hope Street?
That's right.
Thank you, sir.
My main objection here, if we put this thing in, if you approve this, change the stage, it's going to create, we have a problem right now with traffic on Sleepy Hollow. This is going to compound the problem. That's why we don't want to see the zoning changed.
Okay.
We have a lot of pet families here that go up and down this road. We have a racetrack here right now for the residents that has a white fence around it. They make speakers, and they also soup up cars. And these cars are going up and down this street like a bat out of hell. Excuse my English. I've got a clock on them to check they're going between 70 and 80 miles an hour up and down their street. We have been fighting for a four-way sign to put up here, right out by the entranceway of Sleepy Hollow.
Okay.
And we can't seem to get anybody here to help us out on this. And yet you want to put something like this in here, it's going to compound our problem? Wake up, folks. This is not going to be. This is not feasible. There's plenty of commercial property down the road here that they can use for this. We don't need it here. The traffic is going to be unbearable. It's already, if you come out and look at the street and you look at the traffic that we now have, this is going to increase it even more so. It's going to compound it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Heyer.
The environmental impact you're going to have here.
Thank you very much.
It's out here.
Thank you very much. You made your point quite well.
I hope you guys consider it. We vote for you people. We expect you to help us.
We're appointed. We're not voted. Thank you.
You will be, though.
All right, and we have one other gentleman, John W. Sir, I can't read your writing, but.
Hi, my name is John D. Naples. I live at 221 Goldie Street in Sleepy Hollow. I'm speaking today both as myself and for the HOA. I'm the vice president of the HOA,
yes, sir.
Board of Directors there. What Jim said is true. The traffic on the road now on Sleepy Hollow Road is unbelievable. It's way too much for the size of that road. The road is so narrow in parts because of some huge trees that are there. If a big truck or a school bus is coming down the other way, you have to stop and let them go. The other thing is going north on 441, the left turn lane to get into Sleepy Hollow isn't long enough to begin with. Right now, the green arrow is up, and nobody that wants to turn can get into it because of the traffic stopped on 441. So it's just going to be a horror show if we continue this. Please reconsider it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, is any questions of staff?
I have one question. What is the present zoning again on this?
The current zoning is PUD. This is actually a downgrade from the current zoning. So what it will do, under the current zoning, there are offices and medical, and it goes back years, a number of years. I want to say to 2009, I believe I mentioned earlier. And it's much more intense. What this request will do is actually lower the ability to develop as much. So with respect to what these gentlemen are saying, I don't disagree. I understand there's a noise problem and there's speeders up and down that road. Those are facts.
So what you're actually trying to do
is reduce the
impact. Reduce it and prevent what they're fearing that's going to happen.
Well, yes, ma'am. Actually, that is correct. I want to say it was 2009. I believe that's what we mentioned previously in the notes. But it allowed much more intensive development. So by approving this, if it becomes a storage unit, which is the primary proposal being brought forward, those create far, far fewer trips than anything else that's allowed right now. But to the gentleman that spoke, both gentlemen spoke, I definitely have heard of those issues out there. There's a neighbor that's noisy. Sleepy Hollow is used almost like a drag strip, if you want to call it that. I think that's a pretty fair assessment. An RV is not capable of doing that.
Right. So I was just trying to break that down in layman's terms for every day.
Right. And I think that, well, I know that what this does is reduces the ability to do what's already approved. Right. And I think it's actually better for the neighborhood.
So everyday speak, what we're trying to actually do, if we do approve this, is that we're creating development that is less so intense. There will be less traffic
than what could be right now.
That could be right now. So right now, if someone came in under what's proposed now, there's going to be more traffic because that protection is not there.
Potentially, right. Yes,
right,
ma'am.
Potentially. So what we're trying, so that would, keep us from going through, going through this again. Someone that wants to come in there with check cashing.
Not gonna happen.
They're not going to do an arcade in there because all those things are high traffic, high density. So by approving this, we're going to avoid those types of businesses wanting to come into that neighborhood, creating more traffic. Is that correct?
Yes,
okay, because I see here that the Lake County is aware that part of the street is not going to hold any more traffic.
Yes, ma'am.
As it currently is.
And because it's a Lake County road, City of Leesburg does not have authority over the road, so we send it to them, and their response was they will have to create the turn lane in there.
Right, I see that. I see there's a turning lane.
Come out of the applicant's side of the road.
Yeah, there's a lot here that they're asking. There's, three pages.
Is the applicant prepared to do that? Have they?
As far as I know, the answer is yes.
I have to apologize. There was one other person in the audience that wanted to speak, Gerald Oberly. Mr. Oberly, please forgive me for overlooking you.
I'm probably going to read. My name is Gerald Oberly. I live at 175 Patrice Hope Street, which is the closest HOA house to the proposed development. I'm basically just going to go with, if y'all lived on Sleepy Hollow and you lived in the two houses that are almost directly across the street from the proposed development and the new subdivision that is just to the south of this new development, would you all want to be looking at a fence and storage units and another lane? When they have to come out of that lane, when they have to come out of that area, they have to make a left or a right. The traffic coming from 441 down at certain hours of the day is very acute. And now that they've put two new developments in the last 2 years, traffic going both ways has become acute. So you're going to have a difficult time coming out of that area to turn either way unless you want to go with the flow of traffic.
So basically you're talking traffic.
Mostly traffic, but also that area is home to a lot of eagles, hawks, and owls.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you very much, sir. Any more discussion amongst the commission? Any commissioners have anything to say?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ken.
Would a traffic light help alleviate this situation that you say you have a hard time getting out, making left or right turns?
Traffic lights require a certain number of what they call warrants, which includes accidents, deaths, all kinds of things, and it would be required of the folks that are talking about the traffic would be best served to talk to Lake County Public Works. Lake County Public Works is aware of it and did make mitigation via the required turn lanes. It's not perfect, and I recognize that, but the problem is, what can the land be used for that does not take away the rights of the property owner?
Right.
That was
and
my
be
question.
as friendly to the neighbors as possible. And from staff standpoint, a storage unit makes no noise. And that's a big one out there. As our code enforcement group is aware of noise that goes on out there and has been working on that for some time. And so that was one of our main concerns is if you live out there, what can go there, or if you own the property, what can go there that it has to be limited because of the wetlands, but it does not trample on the property owner's rights or create a negative issue for the neighbors. It is a very difficult compromise, but we do think that the storage units are probably the best solution, is because the only other thing that it's going to be hard for somebody to buy that and put a single-family house on it.
Mr. Miller, is there a rendering of that shows exactly the amount of that property that's going to be used again that they can see? Because I really think there's the public really doesn't understand that what we're trying to do here is reduce. We're actually trying to make it better for them. We're actually trying to do what you don't want, but the problem is we're trying to make that land where it's friendly for the whole community.
The property, the entire 15 plus or minus acres is this entire green area here that's striped. The only usable portion is right here along the road because of those wetlands. Mitigation for wetlands would be so expensive that there's no way to do anything other than something relatively, you'd have to do something of high intensity to make any form of mitigation worth it, and you don't want that. We don't want that out there.
So
literally the only usable portion is the
little tiny
acre,
corner.
1.7, 1.8 acres, something like that. It's really small.
Yeah, and I've never seen a full busy storage unit that had more than 2 or 3 cars at a time.
So hearing what the folks have said, they're right. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with them because it is a drag strip. There are noise issues out there. The road is narrow. Those are facts. You don't want to argue those at all because they're simply facts. But by limiting the amount of square footage of the buildings and then allowing the parking in the back there, there's a use that preserves the owner's right, whoever the owner may be, constitutional rights to use their property. It's a quiet use. It's as good as anything that we've seen yet. The biggest concern when the applicant initially came in was under the current PUD, there's far more allowed, and there was far less development out there in 2009, I believe it was. Far less development out there, so it wasn't nearly the issue that it could be today. In planning, as a property develops, the area around it, the uses can change. The potential uses, the good uses versus the bad uses. And what we're trying to do is eliminate the bad uses, so to speak, in simple terms.
We're putting in place a protection for the people in it.
Literally, that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, thank you.
But if you don't know those facts, there's no way for them to know that unless they know to contact us and find out what the current zoning is. So.
All right. Any other questions of staff? Any other comments by the commission? If I hear none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve PDU 23-27.
I have a motion for approval on PUD 2327. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second to that motion. All in favor signify by saying aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, folks, moving right along. Pass all this. All right, new business, number 6, Lee Village Plan Unit Development, SPUD 2335.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for SPUD 23-35 Lee Village. This is a proposal for a revision to the permitted uses and development plan on the Lee School. This is property that consists of approximately 5 plus or minus acres. It's bounded by Lee Street on the east, Perkins Street to the west, then Line Street on the north, and Herndon Street to the south. It is the site of the vacant Lee School buildings. This is a requested change. They are requesting a change in the plan unit development conditions from PUD to PUD, just like the previous case. In the background under the old PUD, the existing PUD, I should say, we're calling it the old PUD, but it's the one current, there was an allowance for 14 apartments in the existing south building. That's when you're facing the school, the building on the left, and 48 townhomes for a total of 63 units. This approval included the demolition of the north building. That's in the current PUD. Under the new proposal that is before you today, there is an allowance in the PUD zoning for 63 townhouse units and demolition of both buildings. So the density being reviewed today is the same as before. It's just that the existing buildings would come down, and instead of 14 apartments and 48 townhomes, it's 63 townhomes. So the number of units does not change. It's the type of units that changes. And in a townhouse, if I may say, you own a front and backyard, even if it's small, on a townhouse. You own everything. It's just that the houses have a common wall. Okay, that's still considered a single-family residential unit. On the site plan that we'll be going over in a moment, you'll see a back-loaded product. What that means is that the driveways are on the back side of the homes facing the inside of the development. And the front yards on most of the streets, 3 of the streets, face the roads on the outside and each other on the inside units. And you'll see this in a moment. This allows people passing by to see only the front sides of the buildings, which is much more aesthetically pleasing than looking at a row of garages and a bunch of curb cuts along the streets, which we wanted to avoid. You'll also notice the location of the access points, which utilize the existing one on Lee Street, and then there'll be 2 on Herndon. I'd like to go ahead and let's go ahead and I'll do the exhibits on this one. So as you can see on the aerial, we have Lee Street over here on the east, Perkins on the west, West Line on the north, and Herndon on the south, and then these are the 2 Lee Street buildings. Currently, the property is zoned PUD. Surrounding the property, all this color is R2, medium density residential, and over here is R1, which is low density residential. And then the proposed zoning again is SPUD, which is small planned unit development. Future land use is low density. This blue over here is institutional. That's the Episcopal Church over here, okay? And then the surrounding land uses are mostly residential, almost completely residential, and then house of worship here on the east. No flood zones or wetlands on this property. It's not within the community redevelopment areas of the city of Leesburg. That'd be the 27441 CRA to the north, and to the east and south, the greater Leesburg. So it's not inside the CRAs. And then it looks like it's in Commission District number 4. And it does lie within the city's historic preservation area. And let me skip, because I'm skipping around here just a bit. Forgive me. On the departmental review summary, the project was sent out to all city departments plus Lake County Government and School Board. There were no substantive comments from the departments. We received Under public responses, we did send out the notice requirements. The project was posted, advertised, and mailing sent out to the surrounding property owners. The staff received one notice for approval, one notice for disapproval, and a few phone calls. I'd like to go ahead, if I can find my page, and read the recommendation into the record. For SPUD 23-35, Planning and Zoning, this is Barry Mansfield, Prospero Senior Living, LLC. Planning and Zoning Division is recommending approval of this request for the following reasons. One, the proposed request for a small plan unit development zoning as conditioned is compatible with the current surrounding City of Leesburg zoning districts of R1, which is low density, and R2, which is medium density. Two, under the proposed small plan unit development conditions for this property, the proposed future land use designation is compatible with the surrounding adjacent properties having future land use designations of low density residential and institutional. And three, the proposed zoning designation for the site is consistent with the city's growth management plan. Future land use element goal 1, objective 1.6. The action requested is a vote to approve the proposed rezoning from City of Leesburg SPUD to City of Leesburg SPUD. This will be with amended conditions, and forward the recommendation to the City of Leesburg City Commission for their consideration. Okay, could we go to the site plan, please, Diane? It's a little bit hard to see up there. Here we go. On this back, here is the church over here. These are all the residential around here. The current buildings line up right about in here and here. Those would come down. Then here is the entrance point on Lee. These are roadways. There's two streets within here and this entry street, which comes around, and then a street over here. The fronts of the proposed buildings would be along the streets. So you're looking at a front door, not a back door, and you're not looking at a bunch of driveways cutting in and people with wrecks coming in and out, backing in and out on these two sides here. These are what we call a rear-loaded product. So you drive in and you pull into your garage here and here. It's kind of hard to visualize that, but this is the street. You pull in your garage here. So your front door is here on these interior units, and this is a sidewalk running right down the middle. On the rest of these, I think I've lost my battery. On the rest of these on the outside, it will be the same rear-loaded product. What you see on the outside is the front. Now, this square in the bottom right corner is a retention pond / recreation area, because it's going to be proposed and planned and built as a dry retention, so that when it rains, there'll be a little bit, it'll soak in. The rest of the time, it can be a playground area for kids. The next square up from that is a dedicated recreation area, which will have the kiddie playground. One of the things that this PUD required, is some monumentation to the old Lee School building. So they're going to, if this is approved by City Commission, they will take the cornerstone off the south building and the two plaques, and then place a monument in one of these areas, probably in the playground area that's in the center on the right. And then, let's see, we've got the driveways on the back, the access points. The PUD itself has most of the standard conditions, which is the 35% open space. It's going to be approximately 15,000 on the park area, plus then you have that big retention pond. There's dark sky lighting. There's some landscaping. There are existing sidewalks all the way around the property. Some dark sky lighting that is required. And again, just to define dark sky lighting, that's where the lighting for the project has to be shielded in such a way that it's lighting the project and not your neighbors. There are some special conditions on this. Because this went through the Leesburg Historic Board and was approved for the demolition, the city manager and staff worked together to come up with some pretty serious deadlines on the project. There's an 18-month time period to begin construction by pulling and pursuing building permits. If that action is not taken within 18 months, that includes a site plan review, which is your horizontal review for infrastructure and layout of the property. And the building permit is when you go vertical. If that's not taken, those actions are not completed within 18 months, all of these conditions become null and void. The city has been, the reason for the short time period is really unfortunate, but the structures have been vacant, and I don't know the exact number of years, but probably 10, 12, something like that. The last use was a private school with some modular units on the back. In the intervening years, it is unfortunately become a haven for homelessness, drug deals, vagrancy, all kinds of problems. And we have yet to, until this developer, we haven't anyone come along that's serious enough to do something. The neighbors are constantly having to call the police. You go by there, the doors, windows knocked in, crushed in. It's an unfortunate situation.
You name it, it's happened.
It's happened there, and I've been over there a number of times on the inside. I've found drugs. You find places where they try to start fires inside the building. It's unfortunate that there's just, at this point, we have not, over all these years, had anyone come in or been able to attract anyone who could do something with it, and the building is starting to fall apart. So we went over the monumentation. We've done the maps. We've done the public responses, read the recommendations. So at this point, Mr. Chairman, I know Mr. Tim Cantrell, who's the local representative, and I believe Mr. Barry Mansfield may be here as well. He's the owner. I know Mr. Cantrell is. I did see him. And they are here to answer any questions. And so staff is recommending approval to move forward on this.
Okay, Mr. Cantrell, please state your name and where you reside.
Tim Cantrell, I'm the agent for the applicant, which is Prospera LLC for Lee Villas.
Okay, you want to bring the microphone up a little bit for you? There we go.
Okay, thank you. I'm never usually told I'm quiet, so
all right,
unusual. I'm here to answer any questions. I do have a few things I need to read from the applicant's engineer. There's 3 or 4 things here he was asked for me to pose to staff.
And
go ahead, Dan.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Do we have the architectural samples, Diane? I did not get to go through those. I apologize. That was the part I thought I missed, so apologize for interrupting you.
Please go ahead.
Mr. Cantrell. Okay. In the previous PUD, there were some architectural samples that were not particularly attractive, particularly considering the fact that it is within the city's historic district. So we've been working with the applicant. We've gotten a lot of comments from neighbors and things, and we have come up with a number of additional sample facades. How this works, and we do this in all our PUDs, is the architectural samples are provided here in Exhibit D, and when they come in to build, staff then takes the samples of what they're going to build on the permit, and we match it up. Does it match up very closely to what's in the exhibits? So to assure that what is built matches the zoning. So this first sample, as you can see, there's the top one shows a duplex, but these are not duplexes. These are townhomes, so you own the property. Right. It's like owning a single-family house. They're just a common wall. So you own the ground underneath. The bottom one is more representative of one of the samples.
Except the garages are in the back.
Except the garages are on the back. Thank you, sir. And some of these are showing the garages on the front. What we're looking here is at the overall architecture, but yes, the PUD, thank you, Mr. Chairman, the PUD does require those garages to be a backloaded product. So you can see at the top and the bottom, and I'm not an architect, so I don't know all of the names and of things, but you see the relief, you see the addition of brick or stone, you see the angular construction, and that is common of the era. On this one, technically that one's a duplex. We're not looking for duplexes. That's just a sample facade, meaning the front of those townhouses. And on the next page, same thing. It's got an older style, an older look to it on the top with the porch. The bottom has got the sharp angles on the roof lines. And it's hard to see in there, but on there's some some stone fascia on there. And then on Exhibit E, here's some samples of monumentation. And again, these are samples, but that's what we're looking for under E and then the next page over. For some type of monument that takes the cornerstone and integrates that into a monument, puts the plaques on, on this site from 1915, or I believe it was 1915, I don't remember the exact date, 1915 to...
And you went to school there then, didn't you?
I did not, but I know a lot of people that did. Some of them sitting here, and even some when it was for the delinquents. But and then the final one shows a plaque. So what we're trying to do is memorialize the fact that the school was there. This has been an ongoing issue for, gosh, I've been here since 2002, and I believe it stopped being used, and I'm not 100% sure, but sometime around 2010, 2012. I could be wrong. There may be someone from the neighborhood that knows the exact year. But the struggle is, do we let it continue to be a little Detroit? Pardon me if anyone's from Detroit. Or do we move forward? It's a tough call. It's been through City Commission a number of times, Planning Commission a number of times. The neighbors are tired of hearing about these promises. Mm-hmm. We respect that, and which is why, one of the reasons why these tight deadlines are being placed on the proposal. Thank you, Diane. If we could go back to the site plan, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, sir.
Tim Cantrell, still here.
Mr. Cantrell.
Thank you, Dan, for mentioning my birthplace. Appreciate that. The items that the engineer wanted me to request for staff to take into consideration, since we are doing the rear load garages, we're trying, and the idea behind this is, number one, it was safety. Trying to keep the traffic that was being created by this development, which we always have traffic concerns, on the property. So the engineer moved some stuff around instead of doing the normal, everybody's backing out into West Line or Perkins. Let's put it on the inside. And so we started working with that. And this is what changes we kind of need, which is instead of 20-foot setbacks on West Line and Perkins, we need where those buildings, that's the only ones that come out onto the road. Everything else is in the middle, and it doesn't. If you look at, it's kind of hard for me to do it from here, but West Line and Perkins are the only ones that face and sit on the road. So we're asking for a 10-foot setback there. That's the only place we would need that. It benefits the interior by allowing us to have more space for the drive to park the vehicles, and it's a bigger yard for the kids. It accentuates everything, trying to keep it, it's a community thing. But it's mostly a safety thing too, because it does keep that traffic from backing out. I mean, it's dangerous to back out. So if we can keep everybody on the inside.
That's a difference of from what to 10?
From 20 on that West Line and Perkins.
Okay.
The other one is basically a minor thing, but it's the parking size stall, which is the parking spots. We're looking at asking for 9.5 by 18 foot instead of, Dan, Mr. Miller, I don't even know what they are.
10 by 20.
Okay. There's also islands between the actual driveways. They're called parking landscape islands, and we're asking for those to be 140 square feet. I don't think that's a big difference from what we already have, but it must be a slight difference, so we have to notate it. And I've got copies of this for staff, for you guys if you want those, okay? But the last thing I've got is as far as the playground area goes, looking at, instead of 14,597, looking at 12,600 square feet, 12,600, instead of 14,597, excuse me. That's the only things that I've got that have changed since we did our application. Nothing, we don't want to change, we don't want to deviate from this, because with these changes, we can stick with this same plan. We're about 50% through our engineering, and we're looking forward to finally, after quite a few many years of working on this, COVID, everything else happened. So we're looking forward to sticking with this plan and getting going as soon as possible, taking down the north building and starting our site development.
Okay.
And I'm here for any questions.
Dan?
If I may respond, Mr. Chairman, in looking at those 4 requests, staff does not have any issues with reducing the setback to allow the cars
Correct.
better parking. Staff does not have any problem with reducing the parking islands because they're side by side. Its standard is 200, which would be a full width parking stall, which is actually larger, far larger than needs to be done. So those 2 staff is good with. On the smaller parking stalls, I'd rather not go in that direction. It's not a huge deal, but I'd rather not go in that direction.
Right, I agree.
But it's not a huge deal, and I think there's room that can be shifted on the site plan. And staff wants to see the playground remain at 14, whatever's shown on there, 14,597, something like that. I think we should.
14,597.
Yes, sir. I think we should require the 14,597 respectfully. So basically, from staff standpoint, we're okay with the setbacks and parking island change, if it makes any difference to the commission. But we'll work with whatever the commission chooses. I'd like to preserve the parking stall size. And this is only on that, and what Mr. Cantrell is referring to is only the parking, the additional parking, which is on the northeast, which I may have failed to mention before my pointer seemed to die. There it is.
Yeah, there you go.
Right up in here. These are additional parking spaces, and we
Guest
counted
parking.
them. It can be guest parking, it can be additional parking for the residents. No problem either way. But that was worked into the site plan, and I think we made that request a while back, but it was it worked out. So in essence, staff is okay with the reduction in the setbacks and reduction in the parking islands, but we'll respect whatever the commission chooses.
Okay. We have a couple of people that have asked to speak on this from the audience. Do anybody have any more questions of Mr. Cantrell while he's here, standing in front of you?
Why is the playground smaller?
Why is it smaller? It all figures into just them trying to fit everything in. So as they're calculating and designing things, you start out with a picture that looks like this, and then as you add the cubes and the curves and everything for the roads, you end up having to make it fit, and so then you start reducing on your non-buildable areas, and it just comes out.
Okay. And could
To
that
stay
just
within the
be,
land development
so
regulations.
you probably go back and do the drainage instead? The
Nah, it's getting a little bit above my pay grade because I'm not an engineer.
Is that-
but
The engineering on it goes into a technical aspect that
Yep.
basically the very large pond there is, I'm guessing, and I'm not an engineer, probably more than technically they need, but it does allow for a significant amount of additional play area.
that's what I've been told as well.
And so
That was a question I had of that, Mr. Cantrell.
Yes, sir.
There's a beautiful church across the street from your
Absolutely
retention
gorgeous.
pond that is quite well manicured and maintained.
Yes, sir.
And with a retention pond that has the flexibility of being also used for recreation. Otherwise, it's not a 5-foot ditch.
Yes, sir.
Landscaping and maintaining that. If it's going to be a low level or not a deep one, you don't need the fence around it. Are you committed to keeping up the standards of your neighbor?
As with any neighborhood, we're always going to have the standards of maintaining all the I lost my words. The areas that are part of the neighborhood, that's always going to be under their like HOA and everything for being kept up. So it's regular weekly, monthly maintenance for the mowing and weed eating and stuff like that. So I'll answer your question directly. Yes, of course, we're committed to that.
Because that's a high standard for you to have to keep, and we want to make sure that happens.
It goes with the territory, sir,
well,
for the development.
This one's closer to a lot of our hearts.
Yes, sir. I'm
and
glad.
That church has been there for over 100 years. And
That's beautiful.
Also, the sidewalks around the property now are in poor shape. Some of them are in better shape than others. Those would need to be improved.
I would believe, I'm not positive, but I believe, Mr. Miller, if you can, I mean, would they?
Sure.
Can you jump in?
Yeah, there are existing sidewalks there, and I can check with Public Works because the sidewalks are technically outside of their property line, but the application of a little elbow grease.
Well, then a lot of construction, they're going to get destroyed.
Beaten up. So I can check with Public Works and ask them to be sure that those are up to date, up to code, and cleaned up.
That's a priority to me, and also was guest parking. Mr. Cantrell, as you well know, when you have a Super Bowl party, you have a lot of people. Or when you have a grandchild that has a birthday and you have a lot of people. I don't see a whole lot of guest parking, and that concerns me.
I believe that's the area we were talking about. Yeah, that's going to be the north. The north.
That's on the northeast.
Northeast corner?
Yes, sir.
So that is what's provided for. That's why another good reason we want the setbacks on the units that we have on West Line and Perkins is to make sure we maximize our length of our driveways. And of course, when they're having parties like that, people living that close together are going to usually become pretty good neighbors because they're living in very close
or good enemies.
Well, you know, I think Leesburg's a pretty friendly place. I've been living here for almost 23 years now, so everybody gets along pretty good. So they'll probably come to the party. So I think they'll all work that out. And
in a perfect world, yes.
Yes, sir.
I really like a lot of things that you have taken into consideration, especially the frontage on the public streets.
Yes, sir.
Instead of driving by and seeing half a dozen garage doors open. And
I wish I could take credit for it. It was somebody else's idea, but I'm just here to talk about it.
What I'm concerned about is you're going to have the overflow parking at St. James Episcopal Church because there's no place else to park.
Okay, so like people would start using their parking lot over there?
Correct.
Okay.
And now we've been using that
say.
parking lot for years of yours, but you know, I guess it's tip for tat.
It's going to go away because we're going to.
We understand that. We understand that, but you see what a concern would be for overflow.
Yes, sir.
And there's no parking on the streets, public streets there, to my knowledge.
Not really, except in front of the church.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
So.
No, actually, I take that back.
Well,
there is parking on the other street, which is on the
Herndon.
Thank you, sir.
There's some on Herndon. There it is a little wider.
It is. There used to be. That's where the school buses used to pull up.
Any fencing at all?
I don't think I have any notes on fencing.
Okay. I don't think it's probably necessary.
Yes, sir.
But
I did want to add, and I forgot to add this, there is a 5-foot landscaping buffer required inside the sidewalk around the entire property.
Right.
That will include varieties of trees and shrubs, as is standard in our PUD. Just forgot to mention that.
Okay, well, forgive me for not, I've got a couple of people here that want to speak, and then we'll have the commission close it off if they have any questions of you, sir. Mr. Tom Grizzard.
sir. I am Tom Grizzard. Live at 918 Bell Oak Drive, Leesburg, Florida. It's in a development very similar to what is proposed, and I'm here to say that I am in favor of the concept of this development in that location. I think it's a perfect use. However, I'm concerned of a couple of things. One is one of the agendas that I saw indicated that this will be the final reading and that will not go to the City Commission.
No, sir. It does go to the City Commission on Monday night. That
is one level of.
That Monday night is the second reading.
Right, because I don't trust some of these guys.
Okay.
Probably for good reason.
My concerns, and I do applaud the Historic Board for allowing for the destruction of the Lee School. I was born and raised in Leesburg, and unfortunately, I did not ever attend that school. But I still have some pangs about its demise, but it's time for it to go. And I think this will be a good resolution and use of that property. As Chairman indicated, I'm concerned about not only guest parking, but parking for the units themselves. The units that I live in on Bell Oak Drive have a single-car garage similar to this, but it also has a separate parking lot, and it has a double parking place in front of that, so that a family can have two cars there, outside parking plus the one inside the garage. I've heard a lot of talk about playgrounds in this area, so this anticipates families. Most families have two cars. That's going to be a real big problem if you got front and back parking in front of the garage. It creates more internal traffic. Although I think this is, it may be medium density, but surrounding areas are low density and medium density. This appears to be very high density for the area that's being used for the residential structures. I don't see sidewalks internally. I see only the sidewalks on the outside.
There is one between those two units.
There, if I may.
Yeah.
There's sidewalks running here and sidewalks running around the outside of the units, all the way around and then sidewalks running between these units.
I think that's it.
That's pretty much it on that.
There's no sidewalks between the water retention and those two right
between
there.
These two?
Right.
We can require that.
Well, I don't know. I'm just.
We can increase the amount of internal sidewalk area as the commission sees fit.
And how many guest parking are there? I can't determine that from here.
Tim and I counted that up. I believe it was 26, but I'll have to do a quick recount. We counted yesterday.
I don't
see where that is there. Well, they are so far remote from the units, the living units.
It's closer to 20.
It's going to be difficult for people to walk all the way from the guest parking to the ones down at the corner of Perkins and Herndon.
Mm-hmm.
If there's some way that can be configured, and there's no indication of what the recreation area is going to be. Seems like those units could be reconfigured to there. Dana, can you explain why there's such a large recreation and in addition to the water retention?
The standard on recreation is 200 square feet per unit, which would be 12,600, I believe, is what the actual would be. We're just trying to get more recreation available, more open space. Our city commission has determined that under PUDs, the minimum open space consideration is 35% on all PUDs nowadays for the last couple of years. So that's what we're aiming for. It's not the end of the world if the recreation area is reduced a bit, but we would like to see a lot there, and we're trying to get to that in all of the new zonings and PUDs that come across.
Well, it's personal preference, but I would like to see those open areas more internal into the development, so that the people who live there will use them and not be open to the rest of the public. Thank you.
Okay, we have one other gentleman, Kelly LaFlorette. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Not a gentleman, sorry.
It's close. La Follette.
Close enough for grenades?
When I got married, I went from Lowe, like Lowe's Home Improvement Center, to La Follette. It took me a year to figure out how to spell it. So.
You want to lower the microphone and name and address?
Sure. Kelly La Follette, 1100 Herndon Street. My property is directly west of the subject property, so my house is, yep, right on that corner right there where Perkins and Herndon meet. So I've lived there in my 1910 Craftsman bungalow house for 26 years now, and we have spent a good amount of time and money to try to improve and maintain our property. While I'm in favor of redeveloping the Lee School property, I have some concerns, and those include density, architectural design standards, open space setbacks and landscape buffers, and parking and traffic, which Mr. Grizzard addressed some of those. Density. So the proposed density of 63 townhomes is not compatible with the surrounding area.
36.
63.
63. That's what they're requesting.
63.
They're requesting 63 units.
Yeah. The total subject property area is 4.87 acres with a minimum of 35% open space. This means that only 3.17 acres are available to build those 63 units. The proposed lot area for each of those units breaks down to 0.05 acres, so 2,178 square feet for the lot, the house, everything to be on. That's less than the square foot inside my house. The smallest lot size in the immediate area is 0.15 acres. And the average lot size, when I went and added up all of them and averaged them out, is 0.27 acres. So that would equate to, if you took the 4.87 acres that encompasses the property and divide it by the smallest lot size, you would be allowed 32 units. If you divide it by the average lot size, you would be allowed 18 units. And while I understand it's high density and stuff, I'm just trying to point out that it doesn't really fit in the area. Design. As you know, the property's in the historic district, and some of the purposes of the historic district is to preserve the historic heritage and character of the downtown area. In the historic district design guidelines, which are part of the city's code, it states to avoid new construction that is incompatible with the district because of its size, scale, and materials. It also states that new construction should complement the historic architecture and complement the size, color, materials, and character of adjacent buildings in their historic setting. I did like the elevations that they showed. Those drastically improved over what was originally shown. Mm-hmm. This is what was in the original packet. This looks nothing like any home in that area. The homes in the historic district consist of Craftsman bungalow, folk Victorian, all of the cool types of historic homes that make that place special. So we need it to look like those, which I'm glad to see that they're working towards that. Open space landscape. So the proposed setback for the roads are not adequate. The development currently calls for 5-foot landscape buffers. I'm 5'5", so chop my head off, and I am a landscape buffer. That is not a lot, especially for a single-family home that has 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. You're raising a family there. That's not enough. There's no room for garbage cans, air conditioners, delivery trucks, friends or family parking their cars at the houses while visiting, which is, you pointed out. For parking and traffic, the units call for the single-car garage for a 3-bedroom home. If it's a working family, we're talking 2 cars. Unfortunately, my house doesn't have a garage, but I have a driveway with a carport. And when my husband pulls in and I pull behind and he has to get his car out, it's a lot of back your car out so I can get out and in, and it just causes a lot of problems. There's no additional parking on the streets, and if, like most people, the garage turns into storage, you now have no room to park your car. Also,
how many pages do you have there?
I'm on the last page. I'm almost done.
I'm fixing to put you on a timer, which I should have started.
Okay, I'm almost done. The city requires a 25-foot visibility triangle at the road intersections. There is none on the corner of Herndon and Perkins, which is a very dangerous intersection. I know because I live there. There's a car that has run into my oak tree. I'm afraid that that building is going to be hit at that corner. So in closing, it is clear that something must be done to address the deteriorating buildings, but the city and the residents shouldn't rush to accept just anything. The residents in the area have put up with broken windows, boarded up doors, loitering homeless, shards of protruding metal coming out of the ground, overgrown weeds, vines for years now. But we can wait just a little bit longer to make sure that we get this perfect. I'm hopeful that Mr. Mansfield wants to do the right thing and to take into consideration the surrounding neighborhood. I respectfully request that the rezoning be approved to allow for residential development, but with greatly reduced density, which will allow for better layout of the homes to accommodate families, greater setbacks, buffers, and open space, increased parking, and then minimize the traffic to the roads. And also to specify that the city staff work with the developer on the elevations, which they already have started, to ensure that they include architectural details that fit with the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if I need to give this to you for the record. Since
We
I
don't
showed
need
it.
that.
Okay.
We don't need that. And Miss Linda.
My name is Linda Workman. I live on Herndon Street, also 1120. I'm at the opposite end of Kelly. Jack and I bought our home in November of 1996. We've seen a lot of changes in the neighborhood, some not so good. That is the house of our dreams. As Kelly, she said more than I could ever say, and what Mr. Grizzard said. Our street has a lot of traffic for a two-lane. There's a lot of yellow, non-parking. People still park. I'm just kind of blown away at 63 units. And like she said, these are three-bedroom places. Everybody has two cars. And Jack and I are in the same thing. We have a carport and a driveway. Mm-hmm. If we have the third car, it's you leave, I leave. I don't understand something that big in that area, and I do agree with the whole Lee School in that area, which I am appalled because that was a beautiful building. I have been in that building. I find it disgusting that it was allowed to get to that point. And you talk about like with the drugs, trust me, we're at the other end of Herndon. We've been dealing with a house at that end of Herndon until somebody finally bought it. I get it. The people that live across the street, I can't imagine what they see. Again, on the flip side, it is a beautiful piece of property. I think something can be done with it. I just don't approve of this. I can't comprehend the traffic on my little road at my end. And they come to our road because then they make a left. We have the traffic light at Main and 12th Street. They don't have the traffic light further down on Perkins or on Lee. So I know that's why we do get a lot of traffic, because when they're heading that way, they have a light, which means at a bare minimum, that's 63 more vehicles if they were going that way. I can't, again, I realize something needs to be done with the property, and I feel bad for the people, but I just hope everyone takes into consideration those of us who've lived on that street and just, I love my home. I will die in that home. It's in 1925. Like Kelly and Eric, we've put a lot of money and time into it, raised kids, now we're raising grandkids. I don't want to see that neighborhood get to that point. Okay. I hope that's in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close off public comment at this point in time. Discussion with the commission. Anyone have any discussions or any opinions you want to discuss?
First of all, I'd like to thank the zoning, planning and zoning, Mr. Miller and his team working with the city manager, because I've seen this come up once or twice with Lee. And to put them on a timeline, I really appreciate this, because to me, it should have been on a timeline, and timeline should be shorter. So I would just like to thank them publicly for this. And one other question: are the architecture design not the architecture design? Is the planning in line with the acreage and all of that with the 63?
That's a good question because the the actual density there is low density, which allows 8 units an acre. You multiply that by 5, you get 40 units. The city does have, however, and this is something I appreciate you asking that question because the city has 2 items, one in the comp plan, one in the zoning code that allows for a density bonus if you do certain particular actions, like if it's close to downtown, you have minimum 1 acre. I forget all of the requirements. This is one of the few properties in the entire historic district, and it only applies to the historic district right now, that allows for a density bonus, which means you can increase up to a higher number if you meet the conditions of supporting downtown, which whatever number of units you put here is going to support downtown. Right. Is near parks, there's a number of other conditions in there. This property meets those, so therefore they qualify for that density bonus. And that's what happens there.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I tend to agree with some of the comments that were made recently in the last couple of comments. The quality of life is important, and I just see this as well, I'm not sure I could find the right words for it, but it's too compact for me, and it's I'm aware of some of the things that could be happening with 2 cars parked, one in a garage, one in a driveway, parking over the sidewalk, and people can't walk along the sidewalk. Where are they going to put their bicycles? They got to open up garage doors. They have to start dropping bikes on the sidewalk in front of the apartments in the alleyways. It's just too dense. I know it's been designed to maximize the number of units for the benefit of the developer, but I think it can be reduced. I, for one, cannot. I cannot approve this the way it is.
Okay.
I have to agree as well. I was wondering if I know as like the resident that lives there mentioned that, the property has been coming up. I think it's been about 3 times that we've seen it. And so I really thought them coming up here was a joke because, like, are you kidding me? Again, you're wanting something. But I agree with them. If we're going to do it, we need to do it right. And this Lake County does not have that extensive transit system, and there is, without a shadow of a doubt, there are going to be minimum 2 cars at every home that if there's going to be a working family with 2 or 3 bedrooms. Because even if you have a single parent family, they still have to have somebody else there that's going to be, the cars are just going to be there. And I understand, I want that property built out. I actually pass it in my travels daily, so it's an eyesore. But yeah, it's a little dense. 15 to 20%, I'm just saying, for me, I think that's how I feel in the good faith if they did reduce some of the density just to be more accommodative of the property.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller, is there anything like this in Leesburg?
The nearest one, Mr. Grizzard noted that he lives on Bell Oak, something like that. Of course, the ever-present Bentley Ridge, that's never been developed. That's townhouses, but it's on a larger piece of property. So I'm not sure that compares quite well. I think the one that Mr. Grizzard in his neighborhood at Bell Oak is probably the closest to what we're looking at.
Any other comments?
Yes. Ms. Kelly, your last name I forgot, but you said pretty much what I had in my mind about the development. I think the density is a big question. Looks like I would not agree to the setback variance of 10 feet versus 20 feet on the front. I think that the water retention area could be perhaps designed in such a way that some of that retention is throughout the entire development rather than all in one spot, so that we have greater distance between units, a lower density, in the parking. If you go to any new single-family home development, such as Lake Denham, south of Leesburg, just drive through there, you see the cars on the street, 2 and 3 in each parking area, and the garages are full of stuff. And that's a brand new place. So to develop the property is just an amazing idea. I like it. I just feel like it's got to be a little more efficient in many ways.
Any other comments?
Yes.
Carry on.
I kind of agree with all the commissioners' comments also. I think the density is too high. I think, like Mr. Garazard pointed out, the parking spaces are far from the house, which means they're not going to park there, the guests. They're going to park on the sidewalk, on the driveway, on the lawn, etc. I really feel, in closing, it's a great idea, but they got to eliminate some of the houses, the townhouses, and put a little more property, a little more space between everything. And I know builders want to make money, and the more housing you put on a little piece of property, the more money they're going to make, and people will buy it. But I could see this turning into a slum in density. I mean, I've gone through neighborhoods where it's so crowded, and my son lives in one, not in this area, but it's so crowded, there's work trucks that they're allowed to take home. There's cars. The wife has a car. He has a car. The guy, you got a work truck. You got the bicycles on the lawns. It's too crowded. I cannot approve it either.
Okay. Well, I'm glad. Thank you all for the opinions. Dan?
Is there, and this may not be, well, is there a level of density that I could take back or over to the city commission because of wanting to, I believe because of wanting to put this project on a deadline, which is what we did with the 18 months. Right. Is there a level of density that could be, that the commission could say we're okay with? I mean, is that, and I know that's a tough question.
Is it a level of density, or is it what we see on the site plan as far as space is concerned? The layout rather than density. I think that's more important. I think that if we're talking at X density now, then you can have something very, very similar if you could rework the site.
And
so I think that what we see on paper is more important than just giving a number.
Thank you for those comments.
Density.
What I'm trying to do is be able to report to the commission accurately the concerns, to report to the city commission accurately the concerns of this planning commission. And what I'm noting here, too compact, the parking, the density, those types of items that, and I have to put it in like 1 or 2 sentences to get it in, but I want to do it accurately. So that's the reason for what I'm asking.
Without the bonus, what is typically going to
40?
That would take it from 63 to 40.
That, to me, would be a good goal to shoot for, and have them revise their site plan. What I do like about the site plan is that there is no direct entry from the perimeter streets. That'll be a nightmare on Perkins. So having the interior access to the garages and having the front of the house face outward towards the street is typical of a neighborhood.
That was one of the concerns we had as a staff, is regardless of the number, we didn't want those driveways poking out on Perkins and
and there is no parking on
minimal.
Perkins. It's all yellow there. You can't park in front of these units.
You cannot park in front of those. That is correct.
I just think to accommodate what the desire is of this board is a lower density, and then revising the site plan. I do like, and I want to encourage continuous request and approval of architectural design of the units, because I want them to be compatible with old Leesburg.
You know, I'm not a native in Leesburg, but I've lived here since '57. And this, when we moved into that area, we lived behind the church. You know, we lived right down there where you're talking about. This was my playground. And I want to see something done there desperately. I mean, desperately. I want to see that. I'm done with the schools. That's history. My brother even wanted to put buy a condo in there because his wife taught second grade there. I says, well, you know, you can't do that. But we're putting 15 pounds of potatoes in a 10-pound bag, and I agree with the 40 as far as density goes. I think a lot of the ideas I like, but it's just too much.
Overall, the idea is sound, the density is too high to maintain the architecture.
More green area, less density.
Okay.
I went through grades 1 through 6 there. It took me 7 years to do it. So, anyway, that has no bearing on this situation.
Okay, I'll close this discussion and entertain a motion. I think we've all vented ourselves. I'm looking for a motion on SPUD
I'll make the motion if I can find the number.
2335.
Okay,
SPUD.
I make a motion, SPUD 2335 be denied.
We have a motion for denial. I hear a second.
I would second it.
I have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye and raise your right hand. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Again, please come back with something that'll work for us, because we desperately want something done out there.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'd want to be sure that everyone is aware the second reading for this is planned for Monday night. You can call my office tomorrow if you like, 728-9786-1710. That's my direct line, or you can call 1722 for Sabrina. I'm sorry. Just call me. And I will do my best to get back to you before the end of the day. But the reason is that it needs to go on the timeline.
Right.
So what I will do in the agenda memo is note sound idea, high density, more green space. I'm trying to sum it and continue with the architectural things of that nature so that the city commission will hear you loud and clear, and whatever they vote is the final vote. But just to let everyone know, so it is Monday night. And please call me tomorrow to verify in case
ladies
anything
that
new comes
spoke,
up.
keep in mind, we can only recommend to the city commission, so they could overturn our recommendation. So if you want to be present, would be an ideal situation. Okay.
Try and narrow it down a little bit.
Yeah, you only get 3 minutes.
Because you'll get the buzzer. I should have, but I didn't. Okay. Is there anything else need to be brought up before the commission at this time?
Mr. Chairman, if no one else has anything.
Go ahead. I'm going to put you on a timer, though.
Yes, sir. I do have 2 quick announcements. The City Commission in the meeting a couple weeks ago did us the honor of elevating Mr. Nathaniel Sanders to full-time member of this commission and to replace, so he was an alternate and he's made a full-time member. And as a replacement for Mr. Sanders' alternate position, they asked Ms. Rosalind Peoples-Johnson, who is here tonight, to become an alternate member.
Okay.
So we're very, very proud to have these new members. So for the first time in a long time, we do have a full planning commission. Mr. Simeon and Ms. Johnson are alternates. They will go back and forth as needed. I didn't want to throw Ms. Johnson on tonight.
Now be careful what you want.
But they do alternate back and forth. And then finally, I would be very remiss if I did not announce that I missed a very important person's birthday this week. And I wanted to say happy birthday to Miss Sabrina Mitchell. I think she's 39.
Happy birthday. Come and see her. I think she's got something in her eye.
I didn't recognize her without the pink hair.
Okay, if I hear no, we'll stand adjourned. I don't need a motion for that.
They do need some over there.
Yeah, they do, 'cause every day.